Hey, welcome everyone in this new video tutorial about Diablo-like dungeon generator. In this video we are going to continue our feature of the force tiles, and for that we need to actually check in the current feature we're only creating 4 ways, so we need to actually make a logic that checks what type of 4 tiles we need to create, and it needs to create it afterwards to make sure we can create it afterwards. So in the current logic we says we get the current location and we try to create a 4-way in here. So we need to ask these directions what type of tile they correspond to. So in order to do that, we're going to build a function that returns the type of that tile. But we don't have a way to we don't have an enumeration corresponding to the name I will want to get. I will want to get the name like dead end, corridor, corner, 3-way, 4-way, and maybe invalid if we set up a wrong directions. So we're first going to create a new enumerator. This is going to be tile flow or tile movement flow. Let's be it. I'm going to create several entries. The first one is going to be dead end. The second one is going to be a corridor. Then we get corners. Then we get 3-way, 4-way, and of course, an invalid in case we set up wrong directions. So we need to build a simple function that asks what these directions are. So we're going to build that function right now. This is going to say directions to flow. This is going to get a parameter in being a direction. This is going to be called in directions, and we also want to make that function pure, and we want that function to return the enumeration we just created, so tile movement flow. This is going to be the return value. So we basically want to know what type of tile that is in order to know what type of check we need to do to make sure we can actually put the tile. So if I'm going in our 4-way function, we're actually making sure we can spawn the 4 ways. But in order to know that we have to check if we can spawn a 4-way, we actually need to know if the tile we are spawning is a 4-way. So that function is going to tell us what type of tile that is. So we're going to break the directions, and we're going to get the keys, and we're going to loop through the keys, and we want to know if we want to ask how many entries we need to promote that to a local variable, time directions, and we want to grab the keys of that map, and we want to grab the map we want to find, and we want to ask how many connections that tile has. So in order to do that, we just need to ask is the connection in that cardinal is open. If yes, we're going to grab that and promote that to a local variable and say this is the number of connections. So we're going to promote that to an int. We're going to grab that. We're going to increment that whenever we find an open connection. And then what do we want to do? We want to switch on that integer. We want to add pins, And if we find 0 connections on the, if the directions we are asking for has 0 connections, we're just going to return an invalid type of tile. And if it has 1 connection, we're going to return a dead end. If it has 3 or 4, we're going to return a 3-way or a 4-way. And then if it has 2 connections, it's either a corner or a corridor. So we're just going to grab the directions. We're going to find the keys 4 times. We're going to ask for all directions, and you'll see I will check if that's a corridor. It is pretty easy, so we're going to ask north, south, east, west, east and west. And if the tile has 2 connections, we're actually going to ask if north and south are connected, or if east and west are connected. And if they are connected, if one of these conditions is valid, this will mean this is a corridor, because north to south is a corridor and east to west is one as well. So we actually can just build a selection node, plug that in here, plug that in here, and say, so if one of these 2 conditions are true, this is going to be a corridor, else this is going to be a corner. We're going to hit compile, hit save. We're going to go back to our calculate. I want to go back to our function that generate these forced tiles. So basically, we want to go back to create forced tile, and we want to ask directions to flow. We want to switch on that value, and if that's a 4-way, we're going to build it. If it's not a 4-way, we're going to return fail, I mean success false, and we're going to print the value returned by the enumerator. We're going to hit compile, hit save, and then play. So it tried to create a 4-way. That's what the dungeon's telling us. So I'm regenerating the dungeon all the time, and it's generating the same dungeon. So that's because I have 3 corridors to end tile. So if I specify only 1, I think that should do the trick. So they are a bit different, but they are still kind of the same all the time. So why is it? Because we're actually spawning a 4-way, and it's consuming most of our tile amount. So, but we have a maximum amount of 1 corridor in a row, and we actually get more than 1 corridor in a row, like that. So I'm not sure why. But that's going to be for another video. I wanted to make sure the little logic works. So we're just going to add additional tiles, another force tile, we're going to add a force tile of each type, just to make sure that little logic work. So we're going to add another. Oh, we cannot, because this has 0 value, and when we try to add it, it's adding an entry with 0 value, and we cannot have 2 entry with the same amount. So we're going to add a couple of those, and we're going to say this is a corridor, this is a 3-way, and this is going to be a corner. We're going to hit save, compile, and play. And this is actually saying that we have an invalid direction. So it appears that we do have an invalid direction, so we're going to delete, a force tile, so we're going to delete that force tile. And we're going to print that for a bit longer, just to make sure we can see what's happening there. 4-way corner, 3-way corridor. So yep, that's the tiles we added. So the little function is doing the trick. So I think this is going to wrap up that video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.